This gonna be fun.
You want to sit back like that?
No.
Okay.
Nope, that was
What's
not
it
comfortable.
Right here?
Yeah.
Let me see. Yo.
Yo.
Welcome back to the Mark Our Words podcast, the official podcast of YouTube. What's good with you, Ken, please? I told you don't do the hand thing because I don't have the plugins for the sparkles.
Okay. All right.
Okay. What's good with you, Chen?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
You doing well? We have a special guest today. I'm actually excited to have this guest. I met this guest at least 5 times. At least 5.
Oh, yeah.
At least 5. So she's a good friend, I would say, but probably a better friend to you because, you know, I met her through you.
Yeah.
So I think you should do the honor of introducing your friend.
Yeah, you know, I have a couple good friends around me, man. Friends that always keep it real, you know. Princess is definitely one of those people. Definitely, you know, especially with like how I am as a friend. You definitely let me know. But also, you know, somebody that's just smart and somebody that I always feel like I grow every time we have a conversation, you know. I remember once we had a conversation. It was all 3 of us. We all had a conversation in the car. And I was debating some weird debate about woman rights, and
I wasn't on your side.
I know. And today, I'm not on that person's side either. But yeah, even in that conversation, I reflected and grew from that. So yeah, we brought you on today because we had some questions and thoughts about the education system. And as you guys know, well, you guys don't know, but as you guys will know, Princess is a teacher and been teaching for some years now.
Welcome to the podcast, Princess. Is that what they do like on Drink Champs? They clap all the time?
Oh, yeah. Let's take shots.
But welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing well. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to this conversation.
These mics are good. This is the same mic. This is the same mic we got.
I actually keep the good mic at home. Like
it was a trade-off for the headphones.
Yeah.
That must be what it is.
But I ain't gonna hold you. Usually, whenever we have a guest, they sound real good on like the mic and stuff like that.
Word.
But yeah, like at first, like in the first couple episodes, our voice was kind of echoey, but that mic
is great,
crystal clear.
Wonderful.
But
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just
good.
Like, all right, go ahead. My fault. Do that again. Whatever you were saying.
I don't even know what I was saying.
My
That's
fault.
All right.
All right, well,
cutting off the woman on Black History.
How you gonna do me like that?
When are you gonna learn? I thought you learned in the car.
Don't cancel me.
No, but Chen, this is your topic. What are y'all gonna teach me today? Because at least y'all have something.
I'm a teach.
Y'all at least had something
Okay.
in common for at least a period. You know, you quit, Chen, but at one point you teach for like a small period of time, and then you don't teach no more.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been having this dying question about how do we fix the education system, because it seems like everybody's placing blame for other groups, and it's like, okay, what are the small problems that we have in each of these groups?
Okay,
right? You know, the kids are saying that the teachers don't care about us. The teachers are saying that we don't have the tools and resources to work out. And the administration is saying that the teachers don't want to implement the new ways of teaching, and the kids are too wild. And so it's like, okay, what are the problems that we're facing? And because Princess here, she's been teaching a lot longer than I have. I didn't really understand what the issues were. I knew I didn't have the resources, but also didn't have the mental fortitude to deal with kids that I felt like I was failing every day.
Okay.
And so, these are some of the things I wanted to ask and really pick your brain on. So that's kind of what I wanted to go with.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I start with the first question to you, Princess. Should we as a society, or even like the generation after us, should we encourage generations after us to become teachers? Like to put an emphasis on teaching and actually like get into that field of being the teacher in education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think so. I think we need more teachers. I mean, everybody knows we need more teachers from our whole life. I feel like there's been a teacher shortage. And one thing I know is that I believe in growth mindset. So I think that people can be taught the skills to become a good teacher. So whether they have it or not, I know some people think that you're born with it. Nah, I think you can learn those things.
But the thing about teaching, though, you have to want to teach. And I think a lot of times people think they want to teach until they get into teaching. And then it's like, and we're not even talking about like the admin and the other, but the actual act of teaching is pretty hard. So how do you even, like, you can encourage people to come into teaching, but how do you even allow people to stay in that workspace? If you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a few things. One, I think it's actually meeting people where they are. I see people, so I did Teach for America. That's a program. People have a lot of thoughts about it. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I will say, you know what? For an organization, it's probably one of the most reflective, large organizations that I've ever seen, right? They get feedback, whether it's good or bad, and they move. If they hear bad feedback, they're like, you know what? Let's try something else, because clearly this is not getting a good rep and it's not working. Yeah. So I will give them that credit.
So basically, like, fail quickly and move on to
and work on it. But so outside of that, some people, I know that sometimes people get thrown into teaching and they do it whether they come from, and I've heard this from people who did a full education program at a 4-year university or people who just, did a alternative certification program. And I was lucky that I received good training at mine. And then I also got good advice. Like, I remember it was the week before or 2 weeks before school started, and I asked the teacher who I was taking her place. I was like, hey, what advice do you have for me? And she gave me the best advice that I think I have received.
Oh, you should have gave me some.
What was the advice?
She said, don't dance with your students. And I said, I can't remember her last name, but I said, Dr. So-and-so.
Like, as in, like, literally dance?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not literally dance. She said, don't dance with your students. I was like, what do you mean? Why would I dance with my kids? And then I had to be like, wait a minute, let me not talk to this grown woman like that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she basically said, you say something, and then your kid says something, and then you say something, and your kid says something, and now y'all going back and forth, and y'all doing this little dance. Don't dance with them. You don't need to dance with them. Say what you say, and let it ride. That's it. And so, like, that's what I do. That is a big thing that I do. Yeah. People always are like, how come I never see you yell. You don't get smart. You don't really get angry. Like, I'm like, listen, I'm going to do what I can. My kids are going to listen or they're not. But I'm not going back and forth with them. I can tell you that much. And that honestly helps me maintain my peace of mind. Because people want to go back and forth with you. Even if it's just a waste of time. They really do. And I'm like, sometimes I just laugh. I'm like, okay, you tried it. But yeah, that was the best piece of advice I'd received. And I also got like other training, especially on behavior management. Yeah. And so I know you were talking about how to get people to stay. Yeah. I've seen teachers who left because they were never taught the skills of behavior management. I see. And I think most people leave because of that. Yeah. Whether you're at a school where students have a lot of behaviors or they have few behavior issues, you need classroom management skills. You are not born with them. You don't magically know them. Nobody does. Even if your mother and your great-grandmother and your great-grandfather and everybody get from a family of educators, you are not born with them. You need to be explicitly taught them.
That'll be wild. If you just a family of teachers. It's like, Junior, we all teachers here.
Oh, they exist.
So when you go to this university now.
Oh, they exist.
Pick education as a major.
Listen, don't sleep on education. One of my I consider her kind of a mentor. She was my coworker up until this school year. Okay. And she has a family of teachers. She's a teacher. Her husband's a teacher. Wow. Her son is a teacher. What? And I think she has one more son and daughter. And I believe that they all will end up being educators. Maybe one of them isn't. I can't remember. Okay. But yes, they are a family of educators, and they're doing very well for themselves.
Well, I would say it seems like the mothers of the mothers who were educators of a lot of these celebrities, even though some of them are troubled, they do have like a sense of intellect that you don't see with other educators. You see it with Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. You see it with even Kanye West with his mother. Mm-hmm. You see it with, I don't know if you're familiar with this rapper, Earl Sweatshirt. Yeah. Where they talk about things that are a little bit higher level than the normal entertainment. Mm-hmm. which, you know, I don't really see that with other type of parents.
I mean, you do. I would say if you are an educator, you probably have a deep belief in education, right?
Yeah.
So you are not only going to educate others, but you're going to always be a lifelong learner. You're always going to want to learn. And you're probably going to instill that in your kids naturally.
Yeah.
Not even on purpose, just because they see you doing it, right? Social learning.
Wow.
Can I challenge you real quickly?
This probably gets juicy.
Because Chen says something, and actually you said it while you was explaining one point. You said that basically you have to be taught basically how to be a teacher, basically. And that I don't think, at least I don't remember anybody influencing me or pushing me to be a teacher. What they usually said to me growing up was, in order to be a teacher, you better love it. Because they usually say, the pay not good.
Yeah.
So you better love it.
Yeah.
So how can we encourage people to get into that field? When one of the things that we're saying, we're living in a society now, or in an era now, to where it's going to be hard to, inflation is crazy now. It's going to be hard to afford a house. Houses is not $200,000. Go ahead, Chen.
Can I give a fun fact?
Go ahead, Chen.
In 2020, we printed out 40% of all U.S. dollars ever created in that 1 year.
That's actually ridiculous. And why
40%.
inflation right now.
By 2021, we printed out 80% of all dollars ever printed in
What
the
is
last
the Federal
2
Reserve
years.
actually? You know what? Let me be quiet. I'm gonna be quiet.
We only had $4 trillion before 2020 in circulation, or ever printed, ever. $4 trillion. We have $20 trillion in circulation right now.
So
Fun fact. So inflation is crazy.
Do you know what about that is the most crazy?
What's up?
That is such a quick fix to a symptom of a problem.
We were just talking about this in the last podcast.
But what were you saying, Chris?
So Princess, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I'd rather work in tech. Because in tech, I get paid this much amount of money. Even though I may influence the future, you know, I believe the children of the future. You know, we all sing that song. But the pay's not good.
Well, let me just go ahead and say this. So I feel differently than a lot of teachers. Let me just put that out there right now.
Okay.
I know I feel differently than a lot of teachers because I've talked to my friends, my colleagues. I've met a lot of teachers over my years. I've taught in different states and cities. So I know a good amount of educators. And so just know that I'm saying I feel differently than a lot of people.
Okay.
People need to, I don't know who started the rumor, because it is a rumor, that teachers do not get paid well. We get paid average, right? If you compare the average person who is working with a college degree, our pay is average. It is on par. It is not significantly lower. Now, compared to tech people, yeah, that's going to be different.
Of course.
But, you know, that's like comparing a teacher to an engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to, like, engineering, tech,
Or even nursing to engineering.
nursing, those are up there, right? Those are going to be, like, higher. But I would say for the average college graduate, we're not far. I would say we are. I wouldn't even say we're below the average. I think we get paid about the average if you go by state. I do believe so.
And that's what I always heard. I'm sorry, Chen.
Go ahead.
I should get in and get out. But that's what I always heard. I always heard people, which you mentioned it earlier, that people use teaching as a checkpoint. Like, I'm gonna teach for this amount of time while I still get my degree, and then I'm just doing this to move on. Like, basically, I'm not really gonna plant my roots into education. I'm just gonna teach this because I know math, I know English, I know chemistry, I know whatever. But while I'm just doing that, while I can get myself through, it's not a stopgap. I'm not really that invested in the education field, and I think that is putting I don't want to say a back stigma, but I think that's where it really comes from, in the sense of like, oh, it's rather, if you don't love teaching, then don't be a teacher. Like that's all I heard, because they made it sound like there's so many downsides to it that the only way to balance it out is basically you love it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Go ahead, Chen. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, to your point, is that true though? Like,
True.
If you're a teacher, do you have to love being a teacher to actually go through it?
No. As long as you don't hate it. I think for any job, as long as you don't hate it.
I love that answer, to be honest.
I think as long as you don't hate it, you'll be fine. I mean, the thing is, I think literally for any job, as long as you don't hate it, you'll be fine. Being a teacher, it does have, there's definitely challenging. I think a lot of jobs have challenges. I mean, I will say if you are not a patient person, or you're kind of, I don't even want to say fragile, but like you take things personally,
Sensitive.
right?
Overly sensitive.
I don't know if sensitive is the right word. Just like you take things personal. You don't know how to separate something that somebody does from yourself. Then I would say maybe don't go into teaching, right? Like if a student walks in and they, I guess, slam the door and I can't think of anything, but they do something and now you're like, oh my goodness, they don't like me or they're disrespecting me. Maybe don't teach, right? Because you're making it about yourself.
Yeah.
Clearly the student is having a hard day or a hard time or something happened.
Yeah.
Like check in with them. So if you're going to take everything like that, then don't be a teacher because you're just going to be having power struggles all the time. But if you know how to separate things that happen from yourself, not to say they won't do things directly because of you or to you, because they will. But you got to know the difference between the two. So, but no, I don't think you have to love it at all.
Yeah, so, because I know once somebody asks you, will you ever do music teaching? Has that ever been a passion? Has that ever been
to teach? No.
You don't ever want to teach? Will you ever teach? Like, let's say you was down on your luck. You had no funds in the bank.
No.
What if you made $100K?
Okay, $100K. That's a good question.
But that's
$100K a year.
Yes, of course. But I'm not doing it because I love teaching or even that I like teaching. I like $100K.
That's okay.
Do you find people who didn't like teaching, or because you mentioned this in your example when you was asking her a question, that some people go into teaching just for a time period and then they decide
it's basically a stopgap.
It's a stopgap.
Yeah.
Do you find people doing that but end up loving teaching?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. There are plenty of people. Oh, can you hear my water? I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I've been looking at it like, how can I reach this? Thank you.
Sponsored by Chin's Water.
$50. Cash at me in the description. I'll mail it to you. Just cash at
So
me.
like I said, I did Teach for America. So for those people who don't know, it's a 2-year program.
Yeah.
It's an alternative certification program. And it's basically a way for if you want to be an educator, but you did not go to an education school or like college and get an education degree, you can still become a teacher. And so a lot of people do that. Like you said, they try to do it like on their way to medical school or law school or even anything. And I've met people who had that type of plan and then they're still teaching now and they love it and they're going to be in education for life. So I think both things do happen.
No, it's not going to happen for me.
I feel like Chris could be a great teacher.
And I honestly think that people say, I don't really know where some of these narratives come from, but people say, oh my gosh, teaching is so hard and it's the worst. Teaching is very hard. Let me just say, it's very hard. Okay, but it is not the worst. It's not the worst.
You stole my question.
My fault.
What's worse? Like basically like, and maybe this is a better question for you, Chin, since you only taught for that short period of time. Why couldn't you do it? Now, granted, you have a passion to teach tech. Not so much specifically to be a teacher in the education system. Yeah. But what insight did you gain from that short period of time of being a teacher in the education system, just for that period, that made you go, whoa, if I'm not equipped, I can only imagine what like somebody who is like actually, no shade, good at this, is going through like the everyday experience, if you can remember or like recall.
No, I mean, I won't say it was like, whoa, like if I can't do it, how? It wasn't like that, but there was a level of understanding that it's not just you walk into a classroom and you inspire kids like it is in the movies, where you just walk in and say, hey guys, I literally did this first day. Hey guys, who wants to create the next Fortnite? Everybody was happy.
Really?
First day, everybody's like, yeah, I want to create the Fortnite. Some of the girls was like, I don't even play Fortnite. I was like, but you do like Snapchat. Who want to create Snapchat? I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess, but I don't really use Snapchat. My mother uses Snapchat. But we use TikTok. So it was like that. And so I inspired them. But then the real hard work is teaching them.
Really?
You can inspire them and do all these things and have them be excited, right? But the actual, like, ingraining the because it is work that they have to do to actually learn. But how do you wrap up that work in a fun, digestible way?
And still keep it.
I couldn't do it. I didn't know how to do it. And then also it's like a level of understanding of the material. Like you can't really just say, hey, we're gonna do mathematics, and you don't really understand mathematics to a certain level, because then you can't really simplify, break it down, and then make it digestible for the kids to learn. So those are the two things I really learned. That it's not just about inspiration and motivating, because I thought that was the issue, that a lot of kids weren't being inspired enough and motivated to learn. But it's also being able to break down these different, I guess, ideas and concept in ways that are fun and digestible for the kids to take in. Cause I think, you have these books, but they say all the time, these books are not designed for kids in certain environments. They're designed for, white privileged kids, where a kid might not know what, I don't know. I don't want to mess anything up, so I'm not going to say what black kids should know and not know. So, but some of these things are not designed for the everyday life of certain kids that live in certain environments versus other kids. So it's like, how do you relate to a kid? How you break down these concepts for the kid to understand and enjoy understanding? And then 3, how do you keep that motivation going after the inspirational?
So, I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
When you were teaching, it was middle school, right?
Middle school, and then I did like after programs with girls and within the system.
What age were they? Like middle school age? High school?
Yeah. Around
Okay,
18,
so middle
19.
high school. Okay. Middle school, high school.
Yeah.
So what specifically were you teaching them in tech?
So the middle school was computer science. So
Like-
we tried a bunch of different things.
Languages or...
The first time it was the blocks.
Okay.
Some of the kids, it was more advanced. Then the other kids, they didn't understand why they was doing it. So it's like, that's also an issue, like breaking down why they was doing it. So they just didn't apply themselves. And then we tried to do like a free, so there's this website called Free Code Camp. So we tried to go through that. But it was a little bit
That's
too
gonna be a lot.
advanced.
That's what adults do. I can't imagine y'all doing that.
It was a little too advanced. It was like 1 or 2 kids that got it, but most of the kids didn't. And then we did like,
Were they black?
they were all black.
Okay.
Oh, you talking about the kids that got it?
Yeah.
Well, one was Hispanic, but the other one was black.
Okay, good.
But and then we broke it. Then we did like this video game type of thing where it was like Python, but the character moved based on what.
It was block?
Yeah. No, it was. Still
Oh, it was actual Python?
Yeah, it was actually.
Okay.
You had to type it down.
So I have taught coding in a few different settings. Not programming, coding. But so I've taught it at a private school where there was straight coding languages. I taught, probably shouldn't say this, but on my own accord at my school to all of my students, straight coding languages.
Okay.
And then I also taught for a summer camp, and we did, because I don't really particularly care for block coding. It is not real coding. We need to stop calling that coding for kids. No, it's not, and they can do real coding.
That's why. That's how I felt.
But when I did use it, it would be like, okay, here's what the language looks like. Here's the block. Here's the output. So that they know what is what. And when they change it, they can see the difference. So I had a similar struggle in terms. So I would say when I taught it to my whole class, I teach elementary school. So I would say on an average day, I would say in general, 40 to 60% were super invested. 40 to 60%.
Okay. That's good.
It was good. And I had to do a lot of thinking about, okay, how can I, work through some of those things that you talked about? And for me, it's a little bit different because, like I said, I had been teaching for years before I decided to do it. And black kids can learn it because if my kids who were 10 could learn it, I know for a fact those middle schoolers and those teenage girls could learn it too. And I guess the difference is sometimes we want to teach so much and we want them to learn so much that we try to get as much in as we can. And what I realized, I'd be like, you know what? I had to be like, I'm not going to teach you everything. I'm going to teach you what I can. At least now you know that the interest is there. So you do whatever you want with what I've taught you. And then I'm hoping that some of them, I do believe at least a handful will go on to pursue tech careers. But I hope that at least some of them, just continue to work on that and learn it. I would like, sometimes I would teach them something. I'm like, all right, change this part of your code and see what happens. And then run it. And they really like that. Or sometimes if it was like something a little bit more advanced, I would give them like a skeleton code. And I'm like, okay, only change like this part right here because that's the one thing we just learned about.
Yeah.
And then they could see something really cool, even though they just learned something basic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I was teaching them about divs or something, and they were changing the color of a robot in their CSS.
Oh,
right? But it was cool because they learned how to change the color, but it wasn't just change the color. Like, it was something that looks interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So trying to find different ways to do it, I think, could...
So basically, if you have the resources that you said, even your kids who was, you said 10 years old that they was learning, they was
11.
doing it. It's obtainable for them to learn and do it.
Real languages, yeah.
So I have a question. This will be a simple question, but it's a question that I always heard. Is there any such thing as a bad kid? They always say, hey, they aren't bad kids. They're bad teachers. Is there any
What do
such
you mean
thing?
a bad kid, though? Define it.
Ooh.
Yeah, go ahead. What you want to say? Huh? What you want to say?
I'm not going to say that. I know that.
Okay.
I don't know what y'all thinking.
I'm just saying. Nobody never made me go into specifics of what they mean bad, but basically a disruptor in the class. Not so much of they don't even get to the point of even getting the work wrong. They just not doing the work. They just a disruptor. They just a hindrance to
beating up the kids.
Okay, beating up the kids or just being a bully or just you know, is there any such thing as you not being able to get to or through that child because that child is bad, or is it more of Chen's point to lack of resources or skills even?
It's very disheartening to hear. I never heard that quote in my life. I've heard there's no such thing as a bad kid. I've never heard there are no bad kids, only bad teachers. That's crazy. Can't believe people say that. That's wild.
I heard that.
Those are not our children. Even though we try to act like they are, those are not our children. Like, that's, I don't know what.
But to a certain level, though, right? Because some of these kids don't have great parents.
Right. Okay.
So.
Okay.
What do you mean? Okay.
But what? Because they are in school most of their day.
They in school for a majority of the week. You know what I mean?
So you don't feel a responsibility at all?
Oh no, I love my kids.
Okay.
I love my kids.
I see what you're
and
saying.
I do what I need to for my kids, and I care about them deeply.
What
they are not my.
What is she saying?
They're not my I'm not their parents.
You can't say there's no bad kids. There ain't bad teachers. Because there's bad parents. There's bad circumstances. There's bad lead in the drink. So there's all these different circumstances that lead to that kid being disrupted. That you can't just blame the teacher. I don't know if that's what you're saying.
I'm just saying teachers. I believe that pretty much every teacher cares about their kids a lot, and they do as much as they.
I don't know about that.
Wait, every teacher?
I
disagree.
Most teachers that I've encountered.
Okay,
you know what? Let me not say that.
I'm about to say.
Okay, let me not say that. I have seen teachers who maybe yeah. Okay,
11.
I'm like, I talk. I know what they would say in the lunchroom.
Okay, so maybe not all teachers.
Okay.
I do believe most teachers do. Most of the teachers that I know definitely do.
Okay, yeah.
We also taught in different school systems.
That's true.
And I also think that. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's different. Yeah, we taught in different school systems.
Yeah.
No, I guess
I taught in Baltimore City.
Shout out to Baltimore City, though.
Shout out to Baltimore
I love
City.
those kids. Y'all teachers, y'all don't be doing right by them kids, man.
No, because my thing is this. I believe that everybody starts off loving their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're catching them in their third year and their fifth year. But I think once you get to the 15th year teacher, who is kind of like, I'm sorry, they're for the pension, we had a teacher that he was, what is the word? When he was,
Tenured?
He was tenured in, so he couldn't get fired from that. He used to throw wrenches at the kids. I used to see kids running down the hall, and you just hear bang because he's throwing tools at the kids. Black man too, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm like,
I don't like that.
But that's what was going on.
I never saw anything like that in my life. So
And listen, and if you went to high school with me, you know exactly what teacher I'm talking about. He was throwing tools, not like missing on purpose. He like when he go reaching for it, that is your cue to run.
But why is he doing that? I'm genuinely curious. What on earth? What good reason could he have to do that?
There's never a good reason to throw a tool.
I know there's not. That's why I'm like, what is happening? What is going on?
I think what happened is, I think where a lot of teachers mess up. Well, not a lot. I'm not gonna say a lot. A teacher will give you that homey feel.
Yeah.
Of basically like I'm not, even though I'm an authoritative, I'm like your homeboy, dependent.
People gotta stop that.
Depending, because that teacher may also be the coach of the football team.
Okay.
Or so much. So there's like a homie feel. So I'm gonna shoot him some bail. I don't know if he was throwing tools at students he
Players?
don't know.
Okay.
Dude, you get what I'm saying? Because that's wild if he asks you a question.
Yeah.
And, but
he get frustrated. He don't know the
exactly,
answer. Like,
and you just throw the tool. Obviously, when he go reaching for the tool, everybody who ran knew to run because he's going to throw. That's his thing. That was his way of.
Was he trying to be funny? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
Maybe, but I just knew not to walk down that part of the hallway because I didn't know, because it comes out, he throws it out the door, so you could be walking by and get hit by it. So you mentioned something about teaching in, I know you're like, this is wild.
I'm sorry.
What is the difference between teaching in a private school and teaching in like in a public school and so forth?
I've never worked at a private school. I've only worked at public schools.
Okay.
From what I've been told from my friends who have worked in private schools as well as public schools, if a child misbehaves, they can get kicked out. They don't care if you already paid your tuition and fees for the month or for the year or semester. You will get kicked out. So they don't normally have as many behavior issues, and you don't have to take everybody.
Yeah.
Public schools have to take everyone. Private schools do not.
So do you... Now, I know you didn't teach in a private school, but I'm going to ask this question anyway. Do you believe in the stigma of there are better teachers in private schools?
Never heard that in my life. I think that there are better teachers in public schools. There are absolutely better teachers in public schools.
You never heard that stigma? Because now
there are not better teachers in public schools.
Princess, you are making me sound like I'm lying.
No, so I will tell you this.
Okay.
Again, I've been around educators for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
In private schools, you do not have to be a certified teacher.
Yeah.
You don't have to be certified. All you have to
did not know that.
Yeah, all you have to do is have a college degree.
Whoa, not even the math to teach math? Like,
it's not regulated. I mean,
it's
not by the state.
Yeah, it's just so all you have to do is have a college degree. There are people teaching things that they don't have advanced coursework or specialization in.
Yeah.
And they also probably didn't get that, teaching pedagogy. So they might not know best practices. So no, I absolutely wouldn't say that. Now, yeah, I'm going to just stop there.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like the environment for private schools for teachers and you can put in being a woman, being black as well, right? As a black woman, do you think the environment in private schools is better for a lot of teachers? Or you think it's the same, or you think it's worse?
So from what I've heard about private schools, there are far fewer behavior issues.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I know. The pay is way less. They get paid less. Private schools get paid less. Unless you go to like an amazing private school like Sidwell Friends or something. That's where Obama's kids went. Just so y'all know, like I'm talking about top tier school.
The top 1% basically.
But no, the average private school teacher gets paid less. Yeah. Than the public school counterpart, right? That's the closest school.
So where does this send your kid to private school
come from?
If the better teachers, or the certified teachers rather, are in the public schools?
Better teachers. I am biased, but
let's have this beef.
But but I will tell you from what I've, like I said, heard and seen, from a lot of people, even people who, like I said, who've worked in private schools. I mean, I've heard of teachers at private schools teaching they do worksheets every day, like that's what they do. So I'm not going to necessarily say on average that they have better teachers now.
Chen, I need to know where it comes from.
I've never heard
and unfortunately, you the only one I know
that went to both.
That went to both. Well, hold on. Do you even count the high school you went to as public?
Mm-hmm. I went to Poly.
School.
Yeah.
I thought you went to Poly.
I didn't go to Poly. I went to Randallstown. I went to actually three high schools. I went to Baltimore Talent Development.
Don't know what that is.
They kind of scammed us. Those was the Baltimore School for the Arts Rejects.
Oh.
So like we all went to Baltimore Talent Development thing. It was like another school for the arts. Because I went there for music just to find out it wasn't like Baltimore School for Arts at all.
Is that still around, Baltimore School for Arts?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know about talent development though.
Gone.
They probably shared a building with another school for 2 years and closed it.
It was Dr. Umar came in real quick.
the thing about Baltimore Talent Development, it was a new high school.
Yeah.
So there was only a 9th and 10th grade. So we came in as 9th graders. The 10th graders were there. Then the 11th graders become the 10th graders become 11th graders, and it was a growing high school. Yeah. But it's out of business now. And then I went to St. Francis for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
I went to St. Francis
Academy
private school. Yeah, I went there. I ain't like it because it was completely night and day from what I was going to public school.
How so?
How can I put it? I felt, truth be told, I just didn't like the Catholic feel to it.
Okay.
It was completely different, and everybody was cool. But the thing about it is, I would attest St. Francis to this. That's probably the private school that probably didn't feel like a private school. Because, not to be funny, but to be, like, honest, right across the street was the prison. Like, literally, right across the street from St. Francis Academy was the prison. It's, like, right there. If you go down Green Mountain, all that stuff. It's, like, right there in the heart of the city. So, I never felt, like, the stigma of a privileged kid that's going to a private school. I just felt like something happened at Baltimore Talent Development that I went to a private school to try to, I guess, put me in a better situation. I ended up leaving St. Francis and I went to Randallstown High School. I graduated from Randallstown High School in the county. So, me personally, I hated school. So that's one of the main reasons why I also wouldn't be a school teacher because I don't want to go back into a school and things like that. But I guess my question to you when it comes to the private school, where did that come from?
I don't know.
Like basically, like if like
I think I know where.
Like,
cause you pay for it.
Oh, it's like
people better believe. Yeah, if you pay for something, you're gonna assume or think it's better. I mean, you also have to tell yourself that because what's the justification for paying all this money for the school?
That actually makes sense.
But I mean, I would say I don't know where the teacher part came from, but I would say the equipment that we had in private school was a lot better than the equipment that we had in public school.
And I can agree with that 100%. I can agree with probably equipment,
amenities,
behavior, even the school building and the grounds. Yeah, yes, all of that.
Like we had free period. Like I think
that was public schools have that.
In middle school, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. But that's what I know. High schools, I'm sure I've heard of high schools having that. I think Randallstown had that.
I was free whatever period I wanted to be free around this time. I'm sorry.
But we had free period, and we was allowed to go anywhere on campus. Oh. We could go on the fields. We could go to the lower school. We could go to the high. We could play basketball.
Really?
Same thing with.
Out if you act up.
Exactly. So the same thing with lunch. Like you could go anywhere.
Why don't they just call it recess?
Yeah, that's literally what it is. Oh, because probably so that y'all don't feel.
I don't know. Like I mean, because you don't have to go outside.
It's literally recess.
Like, literally, it's recess.
You don't have to go outside. You can stay in. You can stay inside if you want to. You can go to the library. But it's just the fact that you could do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
And so, like, these things, these ideas that we had, like, just being more autonomy, having more autonomy over your time and who you were as a person. I don't think I experienced that when I was going to, like, a public school. And so the transition from going to friend school at Baltimore, not the one that Obama kids went to Poly was so weird.
Really?
Yeah, because everything was so structured in Poly. Not structured. It wasn't like structured, but as far as, compared to friends.
Was it militant almost?
It wasn't militant. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't structured. It was just more structured than friend school. So it was like you had periods, but everything was like, you have to go to lunch. You can't just like say, I didn't want to eat lunch. You have to go to lunch. And then you have another period. You have to go to that period. You have this period. and there was no like you could build your own schedule. You could.
You can't build your own schedule.
I mean, you could pick your classes, but there's certain things that you had to like I don't know how to explain.
Like basically, you couldn't say, "Hey, I want to do all my classes, and from like 1 to 3, I'm done." Like like you couldn't do that.
Well,
You know what it makes me think about?
you can't leave campus in the high school at friend school. You could leave campus. You could go out to eat.
It makes me think about a few different things.
What's
So
up?
earlier, I don't remember which one of y'all said it, but it was you. So Chris, you had asked about like teachers being our kids' parents, and what it makes me think about is kind of like this dichotomy that you just talked about. Because what I'm thinking is maybe if a student is going to a private school, they may or may not have a more involved parent or set of parents who are doing certain things, who have set up such a structure that it carries on into school. So they don't need the school to have that because it's already in place.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe if a student goes to a public school,
You get
even though
any- you
some
get-
students have that,
You get any type of kid.
so, some students won't have that. They might not have that structure at home. So it's not extending, and so the school has to put it in place. That's what it's making me think of. I don't really know, but that's just what I'm thinking right now.
No, that sounds about right. I mean, maybe not even structure, right? Because if you live in a more privileged area, you might not need that structure because you have certain things already in place. Whereas, like, if you live in a privileged area, you have to be home at a certain time. You can't just be walking around the neighborhood all willy nilly. It's just like life is good and blissful. And whereas here, where if you live in like Charles Street or some of these homes up in Fells and I don't know where Bowie's another great area. If you live in these like expensive places, you could go up and down the street.
Oh yeah, so it's not. Yeah, that's a good point too.
It's not as like.
Yeah, you do have to have more rules because there is. Yes, I don't even know how to explain
it's just,
but I know what you're
just
talking
free.
about. It's less than you have to worry about because of it's safer.
Yeah, it's safer. It's safer. So I think there's so many other things that tie into it. So I don't know where the teacher thing came in because that's what people usually like stick with.
Nonsense.
But there's so many other things that play a part in the private school.
And
versus
Friends
the
ain't that
public
far
school.
from Poly.
No, it's not. It's right down the street.
That's why I'm like, that's kind of wild that they had that type of.
But you also think about Poly. Poly is like private amongst the public schools, right?
You have to get in.
Yeah.
It's not everybody can go to
And
Poly.
plus, it's one of the prestigious schools of Baltimore, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't even know if I could. Even though it's a public school, like it has some private school quality.
It means something to go to the Poly. I don't know because I always kept it when it come to private school and public schools. I always felt more relatable to the public school kids because most of the time you're going to your zone school and those are the kids that live on my block or a few blocks away from me. To where private school, you get anybody. To your point, you drove to.
Yeah, I drove.
You usually had to drive to your private school where we walked to the public school.
That's true.
So I felt like even though it may not be true as in black and white, I felt like public school prepared me more for life like in a more realistic way. But now that I'm growing up, people who grew up in private schools, they live in a different life and in like a different standard almost than, let's say, me. And stuff like that. Like they are in different circles. They are maneuvering in different circles sometimes than we do.
So I have a lot there. So there are two things. So one, I'll make this very quick. You just talked about how you felt more comfortable in public schools compared to private schools.
Yeah.
I have a student right now in my class, and love him. He's a great child. He went to private school last year, and his mom tells me all the time. I talk to her a lot. I was actually just talking to her on Friday, and she was telling me. I remember at the beginning of the year, she was telling me, "Oh my gosh, he's so happy again. Like when he went to private school, he was a good student. He did what he was supposed to do, but you could just tell he was not happy. He didn't smile. His teacher used to always ask me what's wrong with him, and there was nothing wrong with him. He guess didn't
like
care for it. Yeah." And like she's like, I'm just so happy that he's back at the school. He's in your class. Like he just feels so much more joy. He's happy to go to school again. He has friends, and he even said it. I asked him the other day about something. He's like, it was just private school, and now I'm in public school. Like he notices the difference. So I was just saying that I'm sure a lot of people have that same experience. And my student is just 10, and even he said that. But about the whole us navigating life differently. I mean, it's a different life, right? Like
yeah.
I have a friend who went to private school her whole life, and me and her were talking because, she has a great job. And I know a few people who went to private schools. Most of them have really good jobs and they're doing really well. But we do navigate life differently, but we've always navigated life differently. I've always been very much middle class. She has always been very much not middle class, or at least maybe upper middle class. You know what I'm saying? Her parents were in different circles. Her parents were at a different tax bracket than my parents.
Yeah.
So of course she's going to be in a different space than I am. The same way Blue Ivy Carter is going to be moving in different circles. We are not the same. We never were.
That's true.
And I was even talking to I'm not going to say that. I know someone, and I know people who went to private schools their whole life, and they weren't as smart as some of the public school kids that I knew. And they're still more successful, some of them, than some of these smart public school kids that I knew. And it really bothered me for a long time. And then I had to think about it. You know what? You're not paying for a good education. And this is what my private school friend said to me, like, we talked like a year ago. She was like, you're not paying for an education. You're paying for the connections. Do you know? And she told me about all these amazing jobs and opportunities that she's had, not only post-college, but even during college. Like, she told me she was privileged during college because she knew somebody who got her into the good dorms, and she got the good experience. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me while all your fellow students and peers were living like this in college, you were living like that? I mean, it's not your fault, and I guess somebody had to be able to live that, but it's just kind of like, it sucks. But she's like, yeah, we didn't pay for a good education. We paid for connections. Yeah. And my connections have gotten me, in other words, everything that she has right now. That's essentially what she was saying. And I was like, you know what? So and if that's what $10,000 is going to get you, it's not a bad payoff. Like, it's not a bad trade-off. Well, if you have it.
Think about all those parents that send their kids to the same school that Obama's kids was going to. There's a woman right now who's one of Michelle Obama's best friends. They connected through that school.
She ended up being the first lady of the United States.
No. She was the first lady.
Oh, she was the first lady.
Michelle was.
Yeah, Michelle was.
And he's saying that now that girl, the woman, is now friends with a former first lady of the U.S. simply because she decided to spend the money to go to Sidwell. Has sent her kids to Sidwell.
And that connection, and now they're friends. The Obama's, girls and that lady's girls are like childhood friends. So it's like that's so true. I mean, and not only the connections, right? I found out about YouTube through friend school, and this was YouTube at 2006. It was like middle school. Like, people didn't even know YouTube was a thing. So I'm watching YouTube. I'm watching Lonely Girl. Shout out to all you people that know about Lonely Girl. Watching Lonely Girl. I'm watching all these like parodies on YouTube, and people didn't know. I found out about Gmail through my friend school, and there was Gmail in 2003, 2004. I'm using all these different technologies that now, if you see, I'm in tech because of, and they wasn't teaching me coding.
And you should trace this all the way back to...
I mean, I always liked computers, but I started to really like computers when I went to friend school.
Okay.
And so who's to say, like, if I would...
That's kind of sad, though. That kind of makes me sad in a way, because can someone who... I hope someone can. I don't want to speak in black and white, but I hope someone who went to a public school can trace back, let's say, if they want to fall in love with tech or something like that, that public school have the resources to give that same passion that you got through private school. Do you get what I'm saying?
I'm not trying to be a hater, but I think you had the passion before you went to private school.
Boom. Sound effect.
I think you did.
Boom.
I mean, I probably did, and didn't really develop until I went to UMD. But even that, right? College, I would say, is an extension of private school, because there's certain things that I learned in college that I don't think I learned, I learned in high school.
You went to a public college, though. I don't know.
But I mean, yes.
Stop it.
But you guys, let's not act like UMD is not one of the top schools.
Exactly.
It's a public Ivy. What you thought? I'm just saying you went to a public school, though.
But the school that I went to, for most people, is high. Like, yes, it's a public school.
It's a great school.
Yes, but what does that even mean when?
Amazing school.
What does public even mean when it's top tier?
I mean,
like, cause it's the same thing as going to a public school and the Bagoon in
like
the
a top
Bagoonies.
tier. I know people who went to top tier public schools,
and they having the same experience as a lot of these kids that went to private schools.
Yeah.
So even though I went to UMD, it was still like it's not Harvard, it's not Yale, it's not but it was
Public Ivy though.
Yeah, but it was one of the top schools in Maryland, you know. So it's like even when I went to UMD, like there's this one story I always mention about this one. Well, I'm not gonna say her name, but she's currently getting her PhD in mechanical engineering. Mind you, she came in as a what do you call those things? Forensic science? Is that what's criminal
justice?
Criminal justice
okay.
and major. She came in as that because she grew up in Philly, saw a lot of things, wanted to make a change in her
You have a different person
now. But then she came in as a criminal justice, saw her friends, because all her friends were in the engineering school. Saw her friends, she was like, what y'all doing? This, that, and third. She changed her major sophomore year to engineering. Ace Calc 1. Ace Calc 2, which is the weed out class.
Really?
People praise God if they get a C minus. No, I'm serious. They praise God if they get a C minus in Calculus 2. Ace Calc 3, Ace differential equations, killed it. And the only reason she didn't even come in as an engineering degree is because she didn't know about it.
Really?
She never heard about engineering until she got to college.
That's crazy.
So yeah,
and this happened at UMD.
UMD. Now she's getting her PhD in mechanical engineering in UPenn.
At an Ivy League. Ooh, girl, love it.
Mm.
I think, and so remember, we talked about this a while ago, and this is something that I've noticed because I've taught almost every school district, almost every school I've worked in has been low income, a Title I school, but except for one of them, but I think yes, it's like I don't think it's a public school versus private school. I think it's honestly your family circle. So, for example, I think I've always been supposed to become a teacher. Thought of being a teacher never crossed my mind because what do I see in my family circle? I see nurses, doctors, lawyers, engineers, pharmacists, dentists, accountants. So in my mind, those are the only professions that I can pursue because those are literally the only professions that I see adults around me doing. So if you're only seeing like, when I always ask my kids, what do you want to be when you get older? I always ask them. And a lot of my kids are living in low income areas. So a lot of times they'll either say something famous because all the people who look like them who have money are either actors, actresses, singers, so musicians, or athletes. And so, or YouTubers. So they'll normally say one of those things. Or they'll say what they see things in their family circle do. So they'll say bus driver, cashier, I want to work at Wendy's, I want to be the manager at Chipotle, or I want to work at Walmart like my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't think it's about public versus private school. I think it's literally your family circle.
Well, if that's the case, let's talk about family then.